welcome you to No Nonsense Nonprofits. Hi, I'm Sandy Ray, founder of Sandra E. Ray CPA, where we alleviate financial headaches so that you can create a bigger impact. Today, we're going to be talking about refining, monitoring, and sustaining your budget. Over the past few weeks, we've been working on building a solid budget. Now it's time to fine-tune it, to get approval from our board, or go ahead and submit it for our grant and ensure that we can actually manage this budget over time. This is what sets us up for success. So let's talk about refining the budget. We want to do some final checks. We want to look for consistency between the narrative and the numbers that we've created. Check for math errors. If we have math errors, that shows that we're not paying close enough attention. We want to make sure that we have not duplicated any expenses or missed any expenses. We want to make sure that all of our justifications are in our narrative. So just double check and make sure that everything's there, nothing is missing. You also want to fine tune it by refining it with maybe some new information that you may have. Update it for numbers that you maybe get from vendors, from quotes. Maybe you're recalibrating some assumptions like inflation factor, or you're rebalancing across different categories. So when you're refining that, bring that budget in. The more information we have, the better our budgets are. So just make sure, go over it, make sure you have the most up-to-date information that's available to you. So once we get the budget approved by either the board or we get the grant, we're going to want to monitor our actual activity versus the budget. Some budgets, or some grantors are very specific. There's no wiggle room in changing the budget. So you're going to want to monitor that on a monthly or quarterly basis, and maybe even weekly, depending on the complexity and the size of the grant, to make sure that your actual information agrees with the budget and those assumptions, the things that we told the grantor that we're going to do. We're going to make sure that you maintain all of the receipts, logs, any type of documentation that you have. That can be done electronically with PDFs. Make sure you have good backups, but make sure that you maintain that documentation and it's easily accessible. And then consider simple software tools to track your expenses. We like to use QuickBooks Online. We like to tag all the transactions with the appropriate customer for the grant, maybe a class for the program. There's custom fields available. But you also may want to be using something like Google Sheets to keep a log of things. Maybe your grants manager uses a Google Sheet to track all of the expenditures that the manager had expected, and we can compare that with the accounting records. And again, reconciling that information, especially if it's a performance-based grant. If it's a cost reimbursement grant, we're forced to do that when we submit the claims to get reimbursed by the grantor. But we want to do that for all of our grants. And then something that we need to be doing is planning for sustainability. So planning for beyond the grant or for beyond this current year. Are we looking at diversifying our funding? Are we relying very heavily on grants? Can we go to do some additional fundraising in other ways? Individuals, corporations, fundraising events. Are we looking at earned income? Do we have a web store where we can sell related items? If you do, you're going to need to look into sales tax for your state. Or are we doing something that's completely unrelated to our business, but still funneling into our nonprofit mission? And that would be unrelated business income. And then, as you know, there's unrelated business income tax. But you can still benefit the mission of your organization by having something that is going to be taxed because it's unrelated business income. Just incorporate into your planning the amount of the tax, the cost associated with tracking that, and the compliance for federal and state filing of the 990T and the related state return. Another thing that you can do is look at cost sharing. Is there an organization in your area or somewhere where you can share costs? Can you buy in bulk and get a bigger discount? And both organizations could benefit from that. You want to communicate these future-proof plans to your funders so that they understand that you are being responsible and looking to not rely so heavily on grants for future programming. And then finally, make sure that your budget aligns with your story. Ensure that the math shows what your narrative says. For example, if you're claiming to have an expansion of a program in 4 years, you're most likely going to have some staffing costs or outreach costs increasing. Show that in the budget. Anything that's misaligned is a red flag to the reviewer. That's our discussion on budget, refinement, and sustainability. And I just wanted to mention this is our last chance to send questions in for our topic next week, which is going to be a Q&A on budgeting. So if you have any specific questions, I'm going to be happy to answer those. We would appreciate you providing those in the comment section so that we can be prepared and have a great answer for you. I'll try to answer a few on the fly if we have time and have an opportunity to think through the answer. And we're going to be providing a review of a sample narrative for a budget. So that's a lot to cover next week, but we will do our best and we'll try to get to all the questions. And we really appreciate your input into this process. So I hope that was helpful for you, and I want to thank you for joining me today. If you have any questions on this or other topics, put that in the comment section along with your questions for next week. And of course, we always appreciate your likes. Remember, creating a bigger impact starts with stopping the nonsense. If you're dealing with nonsense in your nonprofit organization, we'd love to help you cut through the noise.